This video is about bikes. These wonderful, zero emissions, unless you count manufacturing, transport vehicles. And we have bike sharing schemes. These are our glorious Boris bikes here in London. They're fantastic. Everybody appreciates them. Everybody loves them. But there's a new type of bike appearing on the streets of London, which is a shared bike scheme. They have no lights. They have a little reflector on the back. They don't conform to UK law. They don't have a bell. And they're just being left everywhere. Now, you might think this isn't a problem. There's only a couple of them at each bike stand. Well, bikes abandoned in London, like this one tied to a lamppost, is actually against public ordnance laws. They can be confiscated and impounded. And you might think, well, there's not that many of them. There's just one or two of these Mobikes lying around. They're not a problem. They're sharing bike scheme. Well, they're a dangerous shared bike scheme. They don't have lights. And they're taking up space which other people would normally have on these bike racks. Sometimes this bike rack we just walked past here has 6 or 7 of these things, blocking off the space for the people who normally use it with their privately owned bikes. And these shared bikes are popping up more and more. Now, there's not just one thing. There's OFO, there's Mobike, there's lots of them. But I think something needs to be done before we end up in a situation which gets out of hand. These bike companies have a habit of overproducing. Now, these bikes are supposed to save the environment by you taking this instead of taking public transport, taking this instead of driving. But they do nothing for the environment if the companies get into a war where they produce thousands of the things. And trust me, all this clear space we're walking past here, where all these bikes are not parked, may one day be covered in bikes. You're thinking, well, but why? I mean, the Boris bikes are great. There aren't thousands of them. Well, there are thousands, but there's not thousands of them in one place. There's a few hundred here and a few hundred there, and they're moved around by vans. So they may get moved 2 or 3 times in a day and be brought back into the centre of London, moved out, and then the reverse happens. But these things, they get left. Nobody manages their position. Nobody collects them. Nobody takes them anywhere, and they don't have lights, which makes them unlawful to drive pretty much after 4 PM in the winter in the UK, and maybe 3:30 on some weeks. But here's what happened in China. So they started off with nice sensible parking for, oh dear, that's the Mobike, isn't it? Oh dear. Yeah, you guess what happened. The bike companies got into competition with each other. More bikes available, more customers you're going to have. Oh dear. Yes, that's not good for anybody's environment. That's a lot of wasted metal and plastic. That's where no one can park their bike in an official bike stand because, oh dear, every public space you can think of is slammed full of bicycles. Because people cycle them to one place and then abandon them. Because nobody's taking them back to where they're picking them up from. They end up in massive piles. And you might think, well, how bad could the problem get? Oh God, that's a park. Now you see how bad the problem can get. People cycle to the park during the day because it was fun. That's a train station in Shanghai. That's a park in Shanghai. You can see the problem. This is an impound yard where they're crushing them because they've been impounded and taken off of the streets of Beijing and Shanghai. That's with plants growing through them. As you can see, these things can become an eyesore. They can become a big problem.